Now guys, before we get started, if you already own a pond, drop down in the comments and tell everybody what your favorite thing about having a pond on your property is. But if you don't own a pond and you would like to have one, share with everybody what those reasons are, so we can all talk about the best things about having a pond on our property. That's a dandy. This is a nice one. Nice fish. Nice fish. Yeah. Well, hey there, hobby homesteaders. Welcome back to Peek's Peak. My name's Lucas, and we're sharing our hobbies here on 38 acres in eastern Kentucky. And today, we're talking about why you need a pond. So if you have some acreage, if you've got a homestead or a farm, and the means to do it, one of the first upgrades I would make to my property is to have a pond built. Not every piece of property is made for a pond, and there are a lot of expenses associated with it, and those expenses can be very different. We happened into a circumstance where we had a spot where we were able to build a pond and do it affordably, and it's been one of the greatest decisions we've made. So today I want to share with you why that is. So we had our pond built almost 4 years ago now. We had it dug in the first year that we moved onto this property. The following spring, we stocked it with fish. So we've had fish in it for a little over 3 years, and the pond has been here for almost 4 years. This has become one of our favorite spots on the property to spend time, hang out with family, have get-togethers, have friends over. It seems like it's always the spot that everyone gravitates to. I have noticed that in a lot of people's lives, they gravitate towards a body of water, whether it's a river, lakes for recreation, or the ocean. People love to be around a body of water for good reason. One of the first reasons why I would suggest that you add a pond to your property is simply because of the quality of habitat for the nature around you that a pond creates. Adding this pond to our property almost immediately brought more wildlife, and I can base that on watching my trail cameras. Once we installed this pond and it filled up with water, we had more deer and turkeys and raccoons and bobcats and coyotes and everything else showing up on the camera. And I think that's because they're drawn to it in order to get water. And of course, some of them are drawn to it because they feed off of it. We've noticed raccoon prints near the banks, and I think sometimes they steal a fish when they get a chance to. All of those things are something that makes a piece of property healthy. And so having a nice body of water to feed the surrounding nature is extremely important. We have several videos talking about our pond and the building and all of that, and one comment stood out to me. Someone commented, "I can't believe you would destroy all of that habitat just to put in a pond." Now, you know, we had, I don't know, a little over 100 yards by 50 yards section of trees that we did have to clear out in order to put the pond in this spot. But I would venture to say the majority of that habitat and nature that was displaced just went to the other 37.5 acres that surrounded that we have, or onto the next properties. And I don't think that any of those animals were harmed or permanently ruined over the fact that we cleared a small area of this property. But on the flip side, we created a whole new ecosystem for the fish to live in and feed on and grow, not to mention what it brings to the wildlife just having the water source here handy. So I don't see this installation of a pond as a negative impact to nature at all. I love the beauty of God's creation. I mention it in almost every video, and I don't want to do anything to destroy or harm that. I want to take care of the resources that I'm allowed to use. So that's important to me. Now, I'm not saying I never negatively impact anything, because it happens. We're humans and we're here to live. But I definitely am not concerned with my decision to put a pond here being a negative impact to nature. And so that kind of brings me to reason number 2 why I would put a pond on your property. And that is simply because of the beauty that it adds to the property. Everyone loves a beautiful pond or lake, and this particular spot on our property was a seemingly useless pass-through section of property because it was a very steep valley that you really couldn't walk through, you couldn't ride four-wheelers through, you couldn't do much with because it was so steep and rocky and thick with trees. So it was just kind of a small little area here that was completely unused, and we turned it into the most used piece of our property, not just by us, but by all the nature around us. And it has become a focal point on our property. I find myself, when I'm looking for a pretty scene to take a picture, or my daughter wants to take a picture for Instagram, or I want to take a picture for a thumbnail for a YouTube video, this is kind of always one of the places I turn to because it's one of the prettiest places on our property. Just the fact that it adds the beauty that it does, I would recommend adding a pond to your property. Now, the third reason that I would add to why you should add a pond to your property is for property value. Now, I will say, if you were to have your property appraised before and after you had a pond installed on it, you probably wouldn't see much difference. I don't think that appraisal values change much based on whether there's a pond or there isn't a pond. But I can tell you from my own experience in searching for property, as well as talking to friends and neighbors that search for property, that a water feature is a big selling point to a piece of property. It might not add a dollar value, but it most definitely will help somebody pull the trigger on purchasing that property faster. There are just a lot of positives to having a pond on your property. I would do it simply for the investment in the property. Now, the next reason I would add a pond to your property, especially if you have kids, is for the educational opportunities of having a body of water on your property, whether it's from teaching them water safety and all of those things to watching the fish and the wildlife develop around the pond. That's been one of the exciting things that I have noticed that I did not expect when I had this pond built. I find myself coming up here when I have a few minutes to spare, and I'll just walk around the pond and I look down in the water and I can see the different types of fish and what they're doing at different types of the year. I love spawning season when you can see the behaviors of the fish. You can see the bass on beds. You can see a fry garter trying to protect the little babies after they're born so they don't get eaten. All of those different things that you kind of only get to see in videos and on TV, you can actually witness firsthand. And it's really cool to have your own body of water where you can go out and see those things happen. So there definitely is an educational aspect to having a pond on your property that you might not have expected, but it's really cool. And the final reason that I would suggest that you add a pond to your property is for the overall recreational value. So many people don't get the opportunity to go fish or teach their kids how to catch bluegill and things like that. So it seems like every single time we have company at our house, they want to come up to the pond and fish. The kids want to come up to the pond and fish. We build a fire along the banks over there in the fire pit, and we sit around and we talk with the pond in the background. Sometimes we're not even using the pond. It's just a setting that is very inviting for recreation. When my son and I wanted a project that we could work on together, we decided to build our cabin on the banks of the pond. And just hanging out up here to build that, it was cool to be by the pond and hang out and see the different things that go on around a pond. And as I say that, I spot a big bullfrog right in the edge of the water right here, just hanging out, living his best life while we talk. Let me show you. I got a little too excited and moved a little too fast and scared him away before we got a really good picture of him. But now that Caden and I have the pond built, we camp up here in the pond. And in the evenings, we'll build a fire and hang out. We've got the porch of the cabin we can hang out on and sit. I'm gonna get me a porch swing and put on there and just have a great environment to relax. So the recreational opportunities that come with having a pond are just fantastic. Our pond is in an area where it has woods on two sides of it. And I will say that that's one of my favorite things about this pond is we always have some nice shade up here. So even when it's really hot, you can find a shady spot to sit and relax. And that's something that makes it really cool to hang out in. So guys, listen, this is not meant to be an exhaustive list, and I might not have even thought of the best reasons to have a pond on your property. Just some thoughts that were going through my head, and I wanted to share those with you. If you think of some other reasons, be sure and drop down in the comments and share those. And if you are researching about building a pond on your property, be sure and check out my other video where I talk about the things that I would do differently and the things that you need to know before you build a pond, because our pond is not perfect and we've had some struggles with our pond, and I share with you in that video what those struggles are so that maybe when you build your pond, it'll be even better than mine. Guys, hope you enjoyed today's video. Until next time, get outside and enjoy God's creation because it is beautiful out here. You all have a good day. That's a dandy. This is a nice one. Nice fish. Nice fish. Yeah. That's what I'm talking about right there. And guys, that right there is what makes it all worth it, man. I just love catching bass. This is a nice little fish, a little over pound and a quarter, I don't know. But nice, healthy little fish and a lot of fun.